hopefully it's still working out for those guys down there. All right, so today we have a fairly packed agenda, but I'm hoping that things aren't going to be rushed at all. That's always my goal. So we will do a round of introductions after we go through this agenda. And then I always have my icebreaker question, which is kind of fun. And we've got a lot of good news to share that involves the network and Farmed Institution in general. So we're gonna run down some of that new news. And then we're going to start part one of diving in deeper to our food service at colleges and universities work that we hope to do. So Kathryn Colasanti of the center here and of our impact subcommittee is going to be sharing about a new project that we hope to do through the network, and we'll be gathering some feedback on that. And then we will have a presentation by Janine Oberstadt, who is a member of our Michigan Farmed Institution Network Advisory Committee and of Creative Dining Services, who's going to talk a bit about local food purchasing there through Creative Dining. And then Garrett's going to do an October event rundown, and then we'll turn it over to Abby to talk about prepping for National Farm to School Month and kicking off farm to school activities in September. And I'm going to then get some feedback from you all about a new idea that we have for a Michigan Farm to School webinar training series, and we want to see if it'll work and if folks would be willing to get involved if we think it's a good idea. And then we'll close just by looking ahead to our next couple meetings on the docket. And we will adjourn promptly by 4. Okay. So we would love to see, oh, and a couple more things. Roles for today. So I'm going to be the meeting facilitator today, and Garrett Ziegler of MSU Extension and part of our management team is on the line to be our moderator, and he'll be moderating our chat box and Zoom in general. And then Drew Coleman of MSU Center for Regional Food Systems and part of our management team also is going to be our note taker today. So for all of you who are out there without a role, you have a role. It is to actively listen and participate through the chat box when you're prompted or when you have any questions. And we want to practice that with a round of introductions. So it'd be great to know who is on the line. So in the chat box, please add your name, role, and affiliation.
Colleen, did you want me to moderate by saying what people are saying in the chat box here? So we've got Colleen.
Yes, please.
Noel, also from the Center, Value Chain Specialist. Lori Yelton with MDARD. Kathryn Colasanti, Impact Subcommittee Chair and MSU CRFS. Christine Kwan from the Regional Food Hub Director at Eastern Market. Caitlin Wojak with Community Food Systems Educator with MSU Extension. Looks like we've got Abby Harper, who's an MSU Extension Community Food Systems Educator. Drew Coleman, the Data Manager for MFIN with CRFS. Janine Oberstadt, Creative Dining Services and MFIN Advisory Member. Jay Gerhardt, MSU Extension Local Foods Coordinator. We have Adele Austin Anderson from the Food Corps Michigan, new Food Corps Michigan Director. Welcome, Adele. Mario Boardman with MSU Extension's Community Food Systems. And then Kitchen Food Management Consultant.
Awesome. Great. Thanks everybody for joining. Okay, and then here's another chat box situation. For our icebreaker today, since we are starting to move into fall, what do you look forward to most in fall? Type your answer into the chat box.
Running in cool weather, that's a good one. That's not food related, but we've got winter squash, apple pie, and more apple pie. Crisp weather and seasonal soups. Oh, I like the alliteration there, Caitlin. New wardrobe, getting to wear sweaters. Perfect weather on October days. Cider donuts, that was going to be mine also. Just apple cider, especially this year from Mariel because she couldn't have it last year due to being pregnant. So that's exciting. Cooking and hunting, says Noel. Pumpkins and cool weather. And from Janine, inspiring our chefs to adopt fall flavors and take advantage of local harvest.
All right, that's a good one to end on, right? All right, thanks everyone. Now we're gonna dive into it. And I'm actually gonna turn it over to Kathryn for this first update because she took the lead on this project. Kathryn?
Yeah, hey guys. I think a lot of you knew that Colleen and Caitlin and I collaborated on a chapter that has now just been published in this book, Institutions as Conscious Food Consumers. And our chapter focused on, it's really the story, as I see it, of farm to institution work in Michigan. So it was a great opportunity to articulate our story and just talk about some of the key factors that have enabled us to make progress as a movement in Michigan. But there's a lot of other great chapters here in this book. The whole book, as you see, is about the role that institutions play in the food system and the broader movement for institutions to adopt values in driving their purchases. So I think even just the publication of the book itself is some validation for the work that all of us are doing. So it seems like an exciting step, and it was cool to see that we were able to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. Caitlin or Colleen, feel free to add anything else.
Well, in addressing Christine's note that we wrote a book, we did not write a book. We are just in one chapter in a book. So that's a lot easier than writing a book. And it was, there was a lot of back and forth with the editing, but it's exciting that we're in a book and that the Farm to Institution Network is in a book. And we've heard that this, we're waiting for our one copy of the book. Kathryn, did you get the hard copy of the book?
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah. We have to split it 3 ways because this book is actually very expensive too. It's kind of a problem. So it's probably not a book you're going to want to rush out and buy tomorrow, but I know the editors were trying to work on the price of the book to bring it down and make it more accessible, but right now it's not really. So we'll get one book and pass it around.
Yeah. And they did give us an electronic copy too, so we could share sections.
Caitlin chimed in with that Kathryn did a great job leading the whole process. So thanks, Kathryn.
Great.
Yeah, and I think Caitlin's recovering from some illness, so I don't know that we will hear from her otherwise. All right. Anything else, Kathryn? I don't have anything else to add.
Nope.
Cool. So exciting news. Our network's in a book. All right, and then in other news, the Farm to Institution Network was featured in the last of 3 webinars of the Wallace Center's series on food systems leadership for their Food Systems Leadership Network. And the 3rd webinar was on collective impact through network and systems leadership. And Rich Pirog from the center here introduced collective impact and working on collective impact through network, and turned it over to me to talk about the Farm to Institution Network and kind of the evolution of it and some of the major opportunities and challenges. And then we were followed up with speakers from Farm to Institution New England, who we work with regularly, and then heard from the Hawaii Good Food Alliance. So there was good geographic distribution on that webinar as well. And we will have a recording of that webinar available on the center website. I think we just got that in email today. So we'll be working on posting it if anyone cares to look at it later. But it was a nice chance to also get the network work out a little bit further. So that was also exciting. And on a related note, we're working with some of the same folks on developing a new National Farm to Institution webinar series. And this will be officially hosted through the National Farm to Institution Metrics Collaborative. And that is a group of folks who, like our Farm to Institution network here in Michigan, are collecting data and doing work around farm to institution. So it's kind of similar folks who are in a similar space with their work as we are. So it's fairly mature organizations and work that are working on this and working together to try to share more across our spaces so that we can learn from each other and not duplicate efforts and maybe share some resources, et cetera. So I think we're still trying to figure out ways to work together as a collaborative. And one of the things we came up with for this coming year is to do a series of webinars on some tools and resources that folks within the network or the collaborative have developed already, so that we could share those and at the same time be populating a kind of database or website landing page where those tools and resources could live, so that folks who are earlier in this work and want to take advantage of some tools and resources would have them more readily available all in one place from all different spaces. So Farm to Institution New England, the Wallace Center, and the Center for Regional Food Systems with the Farm to Institution Network, mainly me, will be coordinating that together with national members who will be presenting on various topics. And we've kind of come up with the general categories of research, tracking, local or good food promotion, and network organizing. So the webinar that we did the other day kind of came out of some of these conversations, and that was like a lead-off space for us to talk about network organizing a little bit and to promote the webinar series that will hopefully be starting up this winter. So we're collecting names and volunteers for different topics and different components that they care to share. And if there are spaces that make sense for other folks within the network to engage, I would certainly keep an eye out for that. I wanted to kind of hold back and see what others wanted to volunteer for, and then we could fill in the gaps. And we've got lots of great folks that we're working with here. So there are surely multiple tools and resources that we have available that would be shareable. So I'll keep an eye out for that and certainly be in touch if anything makes sense beyond me presenting on stuff to engage the network that way. So that will be coming and is in progress. So that will be another way for us to get more of our tools and resources and work out there. So that's exciting also. And then new news is that the National Farm to Early Care and Education survey results are now in. And some of you may have seen word come through various listservs this past week about some of the initial snapshots of that information. This was a national survey on farm to early care and education that was conducted by and led by the National Farm to School Network and us here at the Center for Regional Food Systems. Megan Shedd isn't able to join us on this call today, but she's the lead from the center on this work. And infographics and fact sheets are now available on the National Farm to School website, and that's farmtoschool.org. And there is a public report coming soon that details more broadly the results of that survey. And there is a webinar coming soon also that will dive into some of those results. That's going to be on October 11th from 2 to 3 p.m. and that's part of the National Farm to School Network's ongoing webinar series. And you'll see here's like the tiniest snapshot of results, but there were over 2,000 sites responding, so that's a pretty good increase in respondents from previous surveys that were done like this, and we heard from 46 states. I know they also got the survey out to the U.S. territories. We didn't hear back from any of them, but there's pretty wide distribution on this survey. And you'll see there at the bottom that most of these folks are participating in education and gardening, and they're also doing local food procurement if they're engaged in farm to ECE. So that's a pretty even distribution between what they consider the kind of 3 core elements of farm to school: education, gardening, and procurement. So a lot more coming on those survey results. I'm sure there will be some journal publications as well for those of you who are also academic geeks. But I just wanted to give you a little teaser, and you can tune in to the webinar or check out the Farm to School website if you would like to learn more. Okay, so that was kind of a quick rundown on a few things. Any initial questions or comments on any of those pieces? Nothing there, Garrett?
Do we have one question just came up from Christine, wondering if we have Michigan-only results. I'm thinking she's referring to the Farm to ECE survey, if we've got results specific to Michigan for that.
So I know the plan is to develop state-specific survey results pages for the states where there were enough results so that sites wouldn't be easily identifiable. I think Michigan falls into that category. I know we weren't one of the top responders. We weren't in like the top 10, but I think there would be a Michigan fact sheet coming. Yeah, so that is in the works for individual state pages for results, because we know those will be really useful within states.
We're gonna get dry clothes because we got so drowned from the rain at the farmer's market. Okay, so I could try to put it in the mail though. Okay.
Lori, can you
Okay,
mute? I think we can hear you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just a reminder to everybody, if you're not speaking, please. Colleen, I do think you have muting power over people if they aren't.
Yes.
You did go.
I'll use it if I need to. Yeah. All right. So yeah, we'll certainly keep you posted on when we have those Michigan results from the Farm to ECE survey. All right. So with that, I am going to pass it on to Kathryn, who's going to share more about plans for a new Michigan Farm to Institution Network project.
All right, great. Thank you, Colleen. So I believe I mentioned this project super briefly at our last network call, but wanted to spend a little more time on it today. So at the direction of the MFIN Advisory Committee, we are pursuing engaging Michigan's public four-year universities. We'll kind of put it out to them what would be a priority sector, and that's what we heard back. So through the impacts subcommittee, starting to gel around this idea of how can we better understand the current level of local sourcing and needs and interests at Michigan's public universities, and how can the network support their current efforts and where they want to go with local sourcing. So the idea is to start with interviews of food service directors or key food service personnel at those universities. Through those interviews, compile some draft findings, so have some initial thoughts, and then we would present those at a convening, so bring together teams of food service personnel from each of the universities to a convening, likely sometime in the spring, early part of the year of 2019. And that would be a time both to further refine what we heard from the interviews, so to gather some additional feedback and input, and then also use it as a time to further relationships among those food service teams so that they can hopefully be better connected, learn from each other, inspire each other, support each other in local sourcing work. And then be a time for us as a network to learn how we can best meet their needs. And then with following then that convening and the additional information gathered there and the input on the draft findings from the interviews, produce a public-facing report summarizing what we're seeing at these universities. Next slide. So I listed out, there are 15 in the state, four-year public universities. And the 3 that are in purple there are members of Cultivate Michigan already. So Eastern Michigan, Michigan State, and University of Michigan. So we have some inroads, but there's a lot more opportunities since only 3 of the 15 are currently members. Next slide. I didn't get a chance to make my own map of where these universities are, so I just pulled what I could find, and I apologize that the readability isn't awesome on this one. But if you kind of see the numbers in that left-hand corner compared to the numbers of the regions, all of the regions in Michigan, at least as broken out by this map, are represented by at least one of those institutions, except for Region 2 and the northern part of the Lower Peninsula. But the point is, collectively, they have a pretty broad reach across the state. There's 3 in the Upper Peninsula, which is great. So I think that in itself is a good argument, I think, for engaging these institutions and helping to drive a more locally based food system. Next slide. So the first step in this process is to develop an interview tool, and we started that with the subcommittee meeting earlier this month. And the topics we're looking to cover would be first just a basic description of food service programs. So what's the scale and scope of the food service programs? How is it managed at the different institutions? What is their history with local food purchasing? Is it something they're doing now? Is it something they're doing through vendors, through Farm Direct, through food hubs? What products have they been buying locally? Do they have specific goals already? Are the goals formalized? Are they just informal goals? Are there other sourcing standards or goals that they're following? And then start to get a sense of interest, looking ahead beyond what they're doing currently. What is their interest for expanding local food purchasing? And then some motivations, barriers, and logistical challenges. So if they are interested in sourcing locally, what are the motivations that are driving them? What are the barriers they're coming up against? And what sorts of logistical challenges, whether it's staff capacity or equipment or storage space, all of those details. At the subcommittee, we talked about we wouldn't necessarily get into interest in specific products sourcing locally, but probably that could be something that we follow up with down the road. So we are, looks like we're going to be able to contract with Caitlin Joseph, who is in Oakland. And she is going to be able to do the interviews for her. And a lot of you probably know her from her time in Michigan. This is my 3-year-old. I'm also on mom duty. Okay, and I'll be with you. And she's going to lead the interviews. Yeah, she did some research for us on the senior care sector. So we know she's really familiar with Farm Institution. So just working on finalizing that contract and hoping we can get interviews done yet this year. So that's kind of the overview of what we're doing and why. So what I want to hear from all of you is first any general feedback on the project and the approach, things that we should be considering. And then also if you have contacts at any of these food service programs and to the extent to which that you've already engaged folks there, that would be helpful to know as we start to reach out to schedule interviews.
So feel free to type in the chat box.
Oh, do you want to type instead of chat?
Go ahead.
I'm on a
Also.
I was wondering, well, obviously I have connections to MDining. We all know that. And EMU. And I think Caitlin's perfect because she worked with Megan Goldenberg on the Farm to Institution report on behalf of the Washtenaw Food Policy Council. And in that process, they also interviewed MDining. So I'm wondering if that would be helpful to look at Megan's methods and interview questions. I know they're online somewhere because I saw them the other day.
Okay.
So just to know what's been asked of already, and
Yeah.
as a resource.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That would be very helpful.
And I can send you that report. If you
Okay,
want.
yeah. If you have that handy, that'd be great.
Okay.
Christine was wondering if there'll be an effort to engage students at these universities or connecting with Real Food Challenge.
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't have immediate plans to engage students, but we do want to learn more about Real Food Challenge and to the extent that any universities are following their standards, and also learn more about the ASHE STARS program and how those standards are playing out at the universities in Michigan. So actually at our next network call, we have an opportunity to hear from a representative from that program. So I think that will be a good step and to align what we're doing with what they're doing.
And on the Real Food Challenge note, this is Colleen. Kathryn and I were talking about that the other day, and we were scrolling through the list of participating universities and colleges, those that are already participating in Real Food Challenge, and I believe University of Michigan is, but I don't know that any other folks in Michigan are signed up. So at this point, it seems like Real Food Challenge hasn't gotten much traction in Michigan. So if folks know of more engagement in Real Food Challenge than what's listed, if you know of other schools in Michigan that are participating, do let us know. But from what we could see on the website, I don't think it was much of anyone beyond U of M dining. So yeah, if there's more that we should know about that than we do, that would be great. Let us know.
Few comments. Lori said she would be able to contact the food service director at Western Michigan University. So thanks, Lori, for that. And Christine commented that it was really interesting when she went to CMU for a campus tour. It sounded like there were a couple of different food service companies there. That is interesting. Maybe depending on different offerings or.
And Christine, if you have contacts from that tour, that'd be great too. And thanks, Lori.
This is Janine. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Hi, Janine.
Hey, I have a comment on the Real Food Challenge, and just wanted to bring to, if folks don't know, there's two components to that. There's a public pledge, and then there's a public commitment. And the pledge basically says we're going to investigate this. I mean, we're going to form a group, a committee, students and administration, and vet this if this will work for us. And so when you look at on their website nationally, the pledge is quite it's fairly extensive. It's fairly impressive. The commitment list, of course, is much smaller because the commitment is we're going to do this. And I work with this and STARS a lot, and the programs, and especially the Real Food Challenge, really relies very, very heavily on third-party certification. And so until that changes, I think we're going to see still a lot more pledges and less commitment.
Gotcha. That's a good distinction. Thank you.
Just a comment in the chat from Mariel, making sure Lori sees this, that if she'd be able to connect her with the food service director at WMU directly, their food hub has been trying to connect with different staff there. So just hoping to make that connection.
All right, so yeah, if folks have contacts, especially at those state funded universities, that would be super helpful to get that information to Kathryn for this project, so then we can just go straight to the right contact. Sometimes it takes a while to navigate, as you know. Anything else, Kathryn?
No, that's really it. So appreciate all of the feedback and contacts that you guys have. That'll be helpful, and I'll certainly keep this group posted as we move forward. And if you'd like to be more directly involved, particularly I think the ambassadors at some point in the different regions will want to make sure we're on the same page there and connecting with the universities. But in the meantime, if you want to be directly involved in the project, feel free to get in touch with me and I'll loop you in with the impact subcommittee. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Kathryn. Okay, so then that's a good transition over to Janine from Creative Dining Services. Take it away, Janine, and I'll advance the slides for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. These slides that you're about to see are slides that we typically share at industry events, like NACUFS, the National Association for College and University Food Service, or the upcoming conference NACUS, which is National Association of College Auxiliary Services. And the reason that I decided to show these to you, even though some of these are kind of really fundamental, is because I think it'll give you an idea of how not only is our program, you know, logistical and operational, but we have to do a lot of education and advocacy around this as well. To our clients, to student groups, and even to our own people, which is probably the most surprising, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But this program is 1 year old, and we launched it last summer, and it is our proprietary program that is really a direct response to our college and university customers, although we use this in all the business segments that we serve. But the catalyst was definitely college and university, because they're requiring a lot more transparency in the local purchasing arrangement than what we were able to deliver through our conventional prime vendor agreements. And that's primarily due because so many of our college and university clients are on prescribed pathways like STARS 2.1 or the Real Food Challenge or even the Michigan Good Food Charter. You know, we have to do a lot of data tracking and reporting, and that's just been tough historically to do through our prime vendors. So we kind of decided to go our own way with this. Here we go. So next slide, please. Okay, so we usually start off and you know, we really define for our audience here, you know, what is the definition of farm to institution? And under Farmstead, this program engages all of our locations directly with local and regional growers, producers. Producers can also mean like artisanal item producers, markets, food hubs, and even student gardens to promote seasonal and responsible purchasing that enhances our conventional purchasing that we do through prime vendors. So let me break that down for you. So and this is, you know, when we started talking to our own chefs about this, there was literally freak out sessions. You know what? I'm buying all my carrots now from a local guy. You know, it is right now. It is to enhance local purchasing. We operate in 14 states, so I had to come up with a model. And to be very honest with you, out of all the 14 states that we operate in, Michigan has been the easiest to model this because of the biodiversity that we have. We operate in a lot of monoculture states, and so, you know, explaining that, you know, in season, and some seasons are longer than others, but in season, we really have an opportunity here to purchase locally, to enhance our programming, to enhance especially produce quality, to and to support regional food systems. And of course, that's where the education and advocacy comes in. Why do we want to do that? And I've had to be a bigger cheerleader to our own teams about this than our actual clients or the student groups. The students are incredibly passionate about this. And and often STARS is on a campus or the Real Food Challenge is on a campus because student groups have insisted upon it. So literally our programming is a packet. It's actually 2 packets. It's one for the location, for the operators, the food service director, the culinary teams at the client location. And the other one is for the farmer, the food hub, or their artisanal producer. And under artisanal producers, that could be, we do a lot with local ice creams, gelatos, some even artisanal bakeries, honey, maple syrup producers, things like that. And so it is the rules of engagement for both sides. So currently we have 19 partners through a couple of food hubs that are new to us. We are touching right now 28 different growing and production locations in 3 states, and I'm currently vetting partners in Tennessee as well. So we're modeling this nationally. So we consider this our 3rd tier supply chain. So I'm building a parallel supply chain to our tier 1 and tier 2 supply chains that we've had for 27 years. This is pioneering. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, could you go back one, Colleen? I'm sorry. Just want to make sure that we do not utilize our conventional supply chain distributors through the Farmstead program. So that would mean buying from a family-owned farm through one of our prime vendors is not part of this programming. We can still do that. We have lots of locations that do not require tracking. They encourage us to purchase local. They want us to do that and to menu seasonally, buy locally or regionally, but they are not tracking and reporting at the level of the college and university partners that we have that are involved in STARS or the other programming. So we also are really advocating for CSAs, and we have multiple units now that are actually CSA drop-off sites. All right, now next slide. So we are new to come to food hubs. We've only been dealing with food hubs in the last several months, and I am upping our game with that. It is really an answer for us. It's a great solution, especially in the areas where we are operating that tend to be a little bit of food deserts in these tough monoculture areas. Like, for example, we do quite a bit of business in Northwest Iowa, and that is corn and soy. And so pulling further out regionally and having food hubs act as consolidators and aggregators for us is proving the way to go. And so in Central and Southeast and Southwest Michigan, it's just way too much fun going direct to farm, and we have so much to choose from, but we're not blessed with this in other states where we operate. It's hit or miss, and so food hubs are becoming a great solution for us, and we're just starting to take advantage of the value add processing that many of the hubs can do, like shreds and dice for our salad bars and other things like that. So we're also really promoting farm to freezer just this past year. So we have what's called our weekly update that goes out to our entire management team, including all culinary. We have a special culinary section, and I am promoting seasonally not only Michigan, but other fruit belt areas of farm to freezer, fruit and vegetable both. And we're supplementing that with seasonal charts of what's in season where. And we go as far west as Colorado and as far south as Arkansas and Alabama, and so Michigan's our model. But I'm getting not only into different time zones, but different seasons, growing seasons as well. So it's the program has momentum now that I am running behind and chasing, but that's a good, very good problem to have. So next slide, please. At Creative Dining, we've used the definition of local as up to 250 miles out. And the reason we chose 250, we used to be at 150. We moved to 250 about a year and a half ago because it's in alignment with these prescribed paths that so many of our college and university clients require with ASHE stars and others. And so, but we have clients that want hyperlocal. 75 miles, 50 miles, as local as possible. So we identify our database of Farmstead partners by their distance. We have a little calculator there that you can calculate on distance. And so we're really trying to pair up not only to our own standards, but we are known for customization in programming. It is a competitive advantage for us. We are much smaller than our competitors, more nimble, and so at each location we're adapting our clients' local goals. And so anywhere from 250 miles to 75 miles pretty much captures that whatever prescribed path that they're on, and that includes even healthcare without harm. It usually fits within these definitions. And then, identifying and tracking qualified product for these prescribed paths is probably our biggest challenge. Because local, everybody just wants to define it by distance, but as you dive deep into these programs like STARS, they have a lot of definitions, and food miles is just one part of that definition. It's a whole list. So our partners tend to be family or cooperative-owned farms, small businesses, food hubs, and markets. Several of those for us are nonprofits. No publicly traded corporations in the program. We have partners that grow both conventionally and USDA organic, both soil and hydroponics. And we also have producers that are, seeking organic, and they are along the path, but not certified yet. Some of our clients required certified, some of them don't. No CAFOs, and of course, each state has their own definition of what a CAFO is, so we're tracking that in 14 states. We're really thinking, we're pretty much engaged with very small growers. Our largest grower has 270 acres, and that's here in Michigan. And so far, everybody that we have added meets the ASHE STARS 2.1 criteria or the Real Food Challenge. And we do that because as I grow this supply chain, it's just too difficult to always, within my own programming, to keep searching for do they qualify. So if they don't qualify for STARS or for the Real Food Challenge, they're not a Farmstead partner. Local and community based. So next slide, please. The vetting process. This is the real proprietary part of the program. We have a proprietary comprehensive checklist of partner requirements. There is a list of prereqs, which are inflexible, which would be state agricultural licensing, general and liability insurance. And then we have nice to haves and prefers, and I have a lot of flexibility within that. And that could be, I look at GAP practices, but I do not require GAP certification. We have plenty of partners that are GAP certified. We have some that are in the process, and we have some that meet certain requirements and not others. We really look at this comprehensively and the big picture of it. We do review potential recall processes. And then very important, and I think as I talk to growers and I talk to food hub directors, the simplicity of ordering for the culinary staff is just the farms, the growers, and the producers that are figuring this out who are simplifying with a simple online ordering process, newsletters. It is absolutely essential. The growers that we have that are still relying on phone calls or emails or text messages, they're not getting the volume that the growers that have it figured out with online ordering are getting, and regular updates. This is what looks great this week, the day before orders are due. I can't emphasize that enough, and I certainly understand the pressures that puts on growers to have to figure out that end too. But that's where we are truly having success and engagement. Technology is big. And then from my perspective, the growers that even have a social media presence, man, did they make my life a lot easier, because not only do we have to purchase this product, we have to tell the story. That's why we've adopted this programming, because we couldn't get the story through our prime vendor relationships. And ultimately, that's what students on campuses want. They want the story. They want the intimacy of knowing where the food comes from. So the growers and the producers that have that social media presence, where we can repost, retweet, photography is provided. Our marketing department works with the growers that have logos, and again, these are still small producers, but there are people out there that are figuring it out. And that's cool. We have our accounting terms. We are not flexible in invoicing in our accounting terms. Our terms are 30 days or credit card. And we haven't really had anyone have a problem with that yet. 70% of the growers and producers that we have produced have been able to meet the criteria. But with that said, we do our homework first. Before we are approaching people. We're not just randomly approaching people. We're approaching producers that we believe, after quite a bit of online and word of mouth vetting, before we even approach them, we have a pretty good idea that they'd be able to be a successful partner for us.
Janine, there is a question in the chat box from Jay. And I was myself also kind of wondering this. She's wondering, what online platform are you using to connect farmers to the purchasing team? So when you said farms that are using online, is that a platform that you're providing, or is that just they might have an online?
No, the grower's providing it. Okay. And some of them have figured it out really, really well. And these are simple. I mean, it's it's an email blast that goes out from the farm. This is the ideal situation. On Monday, let's say orders are due on Tuesday, and here's what looks great this week. Here's what we have. Here's the pricing. We have one generic logon. Actually, we have individual logons that identify the account by the location. We have a generic password for everyone to use, so that keeps it very, very nice and easy. This is low risk security stuff. This is about ordering squash and chicken, and so they're putting their order on, and it's coming. And so this happens. So if we have a college and university account that is using multiple growers, they're doing this with each grower, unless they're engaging with the food hub, who's putting it together for them.
Okay.
But we have college and university accounts in Michigan that they have 6 to 8 different growers. Some are seasonal, some are year round.
A couple more questions came in from Christine about that. Specifically, do the food hubs have online purchasing as well?
Currently, the 3 food hubs that we are dealing with, 2 have online purchasing and 1 does not. And I'm talking to the one that does not. And they're recognizing what I'm saying. It's just about the bandwidth, the ability for someone to develop that for them.
Mm-hmm. And then also, as far as delivery, and are the farms delivering direct, or is there any support provided for farm pickups on your side?
So no, we do no farm pickups. All growers so far, all of the 19 partners so far, deliver directly, and they the two out of the 3 food hubs that we're dealing with are delivering directly. The one is wanting to try to piggyback on a second tier vendor that we have. And so, you know, we're trying to work those things out too. Hey, we're all for fewer trucks on the road and all of this. I'm not hesitant. I'm just weighing the pros and cons of that. And I'll be real honest with you here. In college and university, optics about this matter. Students greatly romanticize this stuff. The relationship between dining services and potential farms and producers. I meet with student groups constantly and have to unfortunately remind them that this is a business, which is a real bummer to them. They're all about, you know, supporting obviously regional agriculture and family farms, but it's really cool when I get to bring the farmers in to talk to the students, because then they hear from the farmers that it's also a business. Excuse me, I'm gonna grab a drink of water here. But so far, we have direct delivery. But I see that changing, especially around food hubs. Next slide, please. So I talked a little bit here about the vetting process. And so you can see that we have our prereqs and our flexibility. The other thing is the food safety. And what happens with the vetting process is I can only vet so far. And then I have to do more education and advocacy with our own teams that this food does not come in ready to serve. This is not coming in plastic bags sealed like from prime vendors where you can just dump it on a salad bar. This requires proper food handling, washing of produce, and good sanitation practices, which some of the very, very large commercial growers have almost tried to engineer out. And you know, personally, I think that's got a whole food safety story to itself. But we are very comfortable that we have vetted that between what we have done on the vetting side of our growers and producers, and then the continuous education of our own staff into serve safe practices and safe food handling practices. We're very comfortable with this process, and some of our competitors really feign amazement at this, but we think we know we have it covered, so we're not worried about this. Next slide, please. Supporting fair price, and we have gone the stupid simple route with this. We tell our vendors that they are going to set the price. We do not negotiate pricing with any Farmstead vendor. The price is their price is the price. We take it or we leave it. It's working for us. This is, you know, supplemental purchasing to our conventional purchasing. We have not yet made a commitment where we're going to buy all of our potatoes or all of our carrots from any particular producer or food hub. And this has also involved education. The challenge is actually around price has been a lot more on our side of the equation. When I have a chef that tells me that local carrots are 11 cents a pound more than what they can buy through a prime vendor. And what I know is that they just don't they don't understand the goal. And usually I have to ask, dude, how many carrots are you buying? And so this is a re-education of our people that are purchasing. I want to just interject here. Unlike our large competitors, we do not force slot with our conventional purchasing. We do not force slot any food, with the exception of one item, which is cage-free eggs. Our culinarians can buy whatever they want through approved vendors. Our culinarians have a lot of flexibility. As long as quality and financial goals are met at the unit level. So we do not have a national contract for tomatoes. We don't even have a state or county contract for tomatoes. any one of our teams can buy tomatoes from wherever they like, as long as the vendor is approved. But within those partnerships, they can purchase what they like. So that's been some advocacy work on my side. And then the last slide, please. So as I keep saying, advocacy is a huge part of this. This is a voluntary program within our 100 locations. The goal is always moving that local purchasing line towards 20 to 25%. We have a couple of locations where we're in the 40% categories by the definitions of ASHE stars and Real Food Challenge. Those locations tend to have quite a bit more, the funding is there for it, let's put it that way. The budget is built for it. And so our culinary teams are learning to better, supplement large-scale purchasing with the local product, menuing and purchasing in season, utilizing, the farm to freezer, and then me educating teams about what food hubs are and the processing, menus that are even available to them. We're getting ready to do a tour down in Kalamazoo with our West Michigan chefs, giving that feedback to our partners that are not using, haven't developed some sort of online system. We want to help grow, our partners, our vendor partners, programming to help meet their goals. And so this isn't done in a vacuum. I mean, there's a lot of back and forth. Where we're really having success, if I can get the culinary team and the farmers around a table, and if I can get the chefs to the farm, the program takes off. Once there's an emotional connection, it just seems to take on a life of its own. You get students involved, and then it really takes a life of its own. A lot of our partners are incorporating social justice programming into the farm work. We're getting a lot more questions around migrant worker conditions and things like that. So we're starting to look into becoming a lot more engaged with that. We've got growers that are doing post-incarceration and addiction recovery, agriculture work. We have a honey supplier. That's all of their workers are recent parolees from the Indiana Corrections Institute. There's some very cool storytelling around this, and that and just raising those local purchasing numbers were the goal. And we have to tell these stories via social media so that our students in the campus communities are really in touch with what we're doing. This is what they're asking for. This is what they're demanding. So this is new territory for us. I mean, we've been talking local purchasing and doing it for several years now, but this past year, we've really developed strategy around it and trying to replicate it in 14 states and growing. So, yeah, I live this every day.
Awesome. I think we do have some more questions that might have popped up. One earlier from Mariel. I think on the slide where you listed CSA farmers as folks that you work with. She was wondering specifically about how you're contracting or working with those CSA farms. Are you buying, and I was curious about, so are you buying shares, like a certain number of shares, or are you just having them kind of work and you're more of a wholesale partner for them?
Not even a wholesale partner, we're an advocate for them. And so what we're doing at those locations, do this at several of our corporate dining accounts, and we do have them on a couple of campuses. No, what we're doing is we're promoting buy a share, and we're the drop-off site and host.
Okay.
And so this isn't, we're buying direct through their wholesale program for dining services, but as everyone is complimentary or interested in the relationship that we have with those growers, it's nothing for us to be, they're dropping to us anyway. So why not drop boxes? boxes or baskets. And so, I mean, we have the refrigeration that we can help with holding if somebody doesn't pick it up, but we actually just host the site and help facilitate the sign up. So we make the connection between the on-site community and the grower.
Any other questions in here? I had a question, Janine. How much of the new vendor exploration is coming from the individual sites versus you kind of on more of the corporate level, you know, traveling to these places or really kind of doing that work?
So I get requests and recommendations from the field all the time saying, we have a farm that we would like to potentially purchase from, and they know that they have to run it through my function to vet. So all of the vetting occurs at the corporate level. And we have to do that, first of all, to make sure that we're meeting both accounting, liability, but most importantly, food safety standards. And so our vetting process may be the thing that I'm most proud of, just because I'm very impressed that my leadership is allowing the flexibility that we have with it. This is, again, we have a few prereqs, but once those are satisfied, there are varying levels of best practices that we accept. And so we really get to look at what is the grower or the producer really doing, you know? And so I get these recommendations, and so far, out of the 28 through the, you know, we have 19 direct and the rest through Food Hub. I have personally walked the grounds and met with every single vendor partner so far. I'm talking to my leadership. I don't know how sustainable that's going to be moving forward. You know, I can start modeling this as we get closer to, you know, 40, 50 vendors as we take this to multiple, you know, much further to multiple states. But you know, we're trying to figure that out. But no, all the vetting is happening at the corporate level.
Any other questions?
All right, we don't see any other questions coming in. Thanks for oh, maybe there's one more. Hold on.
Just a comment from Jay that Janine, you are awesome.
Thank you.
We would all agree with that comment.
Oh, thank you. This program is the best part of my job. I mean,
awesome.
this is all heart in this, and it almost pains me that I have to figure out scalability of it, because right now it's just so darn cool. But I also feel like we're creating a little bit of something here that others aren't doing, or in a different way. And so I'm pretty darn proud of it. But thanks, guys, for the feedback. I appreciate it.
And that was an awesome presentation. We were saying the same in our room here. There are 4 of us here at MSU. We're all like, this is awesome. So thank you.
Hey, you know, one more thing I'll add real quick for all you Spartans,
sure.
Is that when I had to come up with the vetting process, because of my previous work with MSU dining and procurement, I knew that, I mean, MSU had really, you know, started pioneering this way back in 2001 or whatever. So I'll fess up that, you know, I really looked at the Farm to MSU program, and, you know, even the criteria and a lot of the questions. It wasn't a copy and paste by any means, but MSU had already done so much of the great legwork. Yeah, we borrowed a little bit.
Cool.
Not gonna lie.
Not gonna lie.
Duplicating.
So thank you, Michigan State University.
Hey, yeah, that's good to know. glad that was useful for you. Not that we had anything to do with it, but awesome. Well, Janine, we would love to get an update from you maybe next year or two down the line. And our advisory committee will be visiting with you and checking out Hope College in a couple months. So that will be great for us too. So thank you so much, Janine.
You're very welcome.
All right, we're gonna move on then. So Garrett's gonna take it away. There's a lot going on in October. So we wanted to kind of give some previews for some of the conferences that are coming up. So Garrett, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Colleen. Yeah, just going to go over a couple events that are happening here in October. It's a busy month related to food and conferences and institutional conferences. So the first on the docket is the Michigan Green Healthcare Conference, and this is October 9th through 10th. It is on the Grand Valley State University's downtown campus at the Eberhard Center. For those of us with MSU Extension, this is where our GMI meeting was this past spring. It's right downtown, right on the west side of the river. So they are planning a pre-conference kind of tour at Mercy Health, their new facility in downtown Grand Rapids, St. Mary's, Mary Free Bed Hospital, on the 9th that afternoon, and then an evening reception at Grand Rapids Brewing Company, and then the full day conference on the 10th at the Eberhard Center. So there's a couple sessions that relate to food. There's nothing specific about procurement, but they do have a look, somebody talking about changing the food environment at Michigan medicine cafes. So looking for more healthier options, and I think maybe that could include local. And then also looking at the work that hospitals do, kind of tying food and community benefits as a preventative measure for healthcare and for the healthcare industry. So a lot of hospitals are doing community health work and community work that raises prescription for health programs or types of programs that are really kind of getting at food insecurity and food access as a preventative measure. So that is an afternoon session at the conference. So it sounds pretty interesting. Next slide, please. Oh, and registration for that is $140 right now.
And we've got an update here from the room. Lindsay is here with us also.
So we'll just add there's going to be one additional food-related thing at that conference. And I've got Noel here in the room too. We are going to, in the afternoon session at that conference on the 10th, we'll have an emerging issues panel, and Noel and Christine Kwan will be on that panel talking about food hubs and sort of the value that food hubs can bring to hospitals through partnering today. Is that right?
Yeah. That's a good.
We'll have a good full day of some cool food things there, and we'll be there with the table. So come on by. Let us know if you're coming.
Yes and yes.
Thanks, Garrett.
Are you planning to go, Garrett? I'll be there.
I'll be there as well. Yeah.
Great. Sweet. So I'll have a good present. All right. Continuing on. Thank you.
All right, so on the other institutional side, we've got schools, and they have their School Nutrition Association of Michigan, or SNAM conference, coming up October 25th through the 28th. That is at the Radisson Hotel and the Lansing Center in downtown Lansing. There's a website there for more info on that. I think their theme for this year's conference is "It Takes a Team to Feed the Dream." Sounds interesting. Sessions on that kind of relate to food procurement or farm institution. That sounds like Diane Connor is going to be talking about 10 cents a meal there. And I saw this one sounded interesting because this is something I know we struggle with in this farm to school world. Is looked like Dan Gorman was going to be doing a session on kind of increasing the food service department's image with the school board and administration, and kind of talking about the professionalism of nutrition staff. And I thought that might be an interesting session, because that's something that I know we talk a lot about, is how to kind of elevate the work of school nutrition and farm to school within that. So, and I think registration for that is $200 if it's early bird before September 28th, and after is $220. lastly, we have the Michigan Good Food Summit, and if you haven't heard about this event, I'm surprised if that's the case. So the conference theme is obviously Amplifying Voices for Equity. This is the biannual summit related to the Good Food Charter and the work of the Michigan Good Food Charter Group. So we've got lots going on at this event. There's lots of great sessions, some really cool keynote speakers. Specific to the work of Farm Institution Network and Cultivate Michigan, we'll be having our first awards ceremony in the afternoon, so that's really exciting. And in conjunction with that, we'll be celebrating the Michigan Apple Crunch as a group there at the summit. So get ready to eat some apples if you're going. And yeah, so that's registration info, michiganfood.org. I think registration is how much for that? Somebody that knows off the top of their head? I'm sure somebody out there knows.
It's a sliding scale. We think it's 50. This is something I should know. I'm on the steering committee. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think I should know this too.
It's
Okay.
under $50.
Yeah, 55,
around, yeah.
around 50. And we think it's 35 for students. Yeah, and go check it out on the website, it says. Let us know if you have questions.
So that should be a great event, October 22nd at the Ecology Center in East Lansing. And I think that's all of the events for October.
All right. I want to pause and do a quick check on who is planning to come to the summit. Throw it in the chat box.
Pretty much everyone so far.
All right.
Good. That's what I was hoping to see. Great. I know registrations are trickling in, and I'm sure there will be a flurry of them soon, but I think it's almost already at 200 or so, and it'll just grow from there. And Caitlin's going to have to miss.
Oh my gosh, Caitlin, we're going to have you there in spirit.
Terry was wondering if there's a MFIN specific meeting. We didn't end up scheduling one this year, correct me?
So there are some plans happening on the center side of things. So there's nothing totally MFIN specific, but we had internally for MFIN talked about doing a happy hour or something like that, something informal on Sunday night, because we're guessing that most people won't want to stick around on Monday. And Sunday is kind of an awkward day, so I don't know how many people are planning to come to spend the night. If you're not too far away, I don't blame you if you don't want to come. But now it's looking like we here at the center are going to be hosting a happy hour style thing for most of our, for some of our network members and various group members. So I think most of you on the call will certainly receive invitations for that, and we can get it out to all of the folks who readily participate in these meetings, because you're kind of the core of the network. But it's not going to be a open invitation to everyone and anyone, because we probably can't afford to host something that big. But we're just getting together some information on that now and determining our location. But right now we're planning for Sunday night from 7 to 9 p.m. somewhere between Lansing, East Lansing, and Okemos, to be determined, but it would just be drinks and hors d'oeuvres. But there will be invitations made to like the Good Food Steering Committee and the Food Hub Network and all of those networks, and all in all it might still shake out to be maybe 50 people or so, but it'd be a really awesome group of folks who are really, really engaged in this work from different aspects. So if y'all can make it, you'll see an invitation coming soon, and you can mark your calendars now, but no worries if you can't. So it's not going to be anything with a program. It's just going to be kind of open and networking style. So nothing that you would have to prepare for and nothing very heavy. And we wanted to keep it intentionally that way. But when I offered up the idea that we had of doing a happy hour, everyone liked that idea, so they wanted to get in on it. So this is what's happening now. More drinks. So.
Colleen, just a thought. I did notice when perusing the agenda and the breakouts, there are some out-of-state folks that are presenting that might
Yes.
be interested in attending something like that, or if we could extend that invitation.
Yes.
So it'll be
They are already on the list because most of them will be arriving the day before at least. And so everyone who's registered already to stay at the hotel and everyone that we know is coming from out of town to speak, they are already invited to that happy hour too. They're already on the list at least. So the invitation will be going out soon, and it'll just have a quick little Google form along with it if you plan to come or if you don't plan to come. And then if you do plan to come, we'll just collect dietary restrictions and that sort of thing. But it's going to be pretty simple, and it should be fun. All right. Thank you. And since this is the start of the school year, we wanted to kind of check in on kicking off Farm to School. And Abby is on the line to offer up some tips, and all of that can be in advance of October, which is National Farm to School Month. Abby, take it away.
Thanks, Colleen. Hopefully y'all can hear me okay. I'm struggling with recovering from illness too. I think something's going around, but so there's an article that came out in the most recent MFIN newsletter on some tips and ideas for kicking off Farm to School in September. October is obviously a great time of year to do Farm to School as well, but I think that September is a good month for kind of reinvigorating some of those efforts and preparing for a really awesome Farm to School month. So I just wanted to highlight a couple ideas that we've seen as successful around the state, around the country. There's a lot of activity happening in school this time of year, just getting back into the swing of things, and with it being peak harvest for many of Michigan products, there's a lot of structural support right now for initiating and invigorating Farm to School efforts. A couple of ideas. Given the start of the school year, it's a great time to couple back to school events with kickoff events for Farm to School events. This can be a snack or meal made from local farmers, harvest parties in a school garden, or bringing a farmer in to talk to students at a school assembly. As some folks were talking about before, getting recognition for Farm to School efforts is something that a lot of schools may not be the best at, but that can really boost Farm to School efforts and get community support for doing some of the legwork and required to make them successful. So at this time of the year, with the abundance of Michigan grown fruits and vegetables, it's a great way to get some of that early enthusiasm and folks on board for Farm to School and start some of that relationship building. It's also a great idea to involve farmers in these events, provided that they have the time, maybe on a rainy day, bringing them in to honor them and start to create those relationships between farmers and students. There's a lot of places where that connection has shown to increase receptivity to local foods when students have that education and direct interaction with the source. Another opportunity, some of you may have seen the story featured last year by Jay Gerhardt, who's on the call, of the Michigan Made Meals event at Dexter Public Schools. I encourage you all to kind of flip back to that article and look at it if you need some inspiration. But September is a really great time of year to do a meal entirely sourced from Michigan products. This time of year, it's especially easy to get all food groups from Michigan and get a broad spectrum of the color palette on your plate from Michigan as well. A lot of the spring crops in our Cultivate Michigan guides are coming back into season, and a lot of fall and even some summer crops still are in peak harvest season. So it's a really great time of year to do that. And then another idea is to engage parents in Farm to School efforts this time of year. There's a lot of parent activity in schools through back to school nights, start of the year parent teacher conferences and family nights. And as we've seen in a lot of Farm to School projects, parents can be some of the invigorating force and some of the really necessary volunteer hours to start these efforts. Parents can be influential either through connecting with local farmers and providing some of those community connections, talking to kids at home to reinforce some of the learnings they're having in school around local food, or even providing hours to volunteer in school taste tests or on-site garden maintenance. But if they don't know about what you're doing, they're not gonna see interest in being involved. So engaging parents at this time of year is really great as well. And then lastly, as Colleen mentioned, there's a lot of great structure this time of year for farm to school activities. October being Farm to School Month provides some great statewide energy around farm to school efforts and provides some opportunities to have activities highlighted through either the National Farm to School Network or our Cultivate Michigan newsletter, and perhaps even reach out to local press to get them involved. So it's never too early for school food service to start planning what they're doing for back to school month. And the other easy win for farm to school coming up is the Michigan Apple Crunch. It's going to be on October 23rd this year, and I know Colleen, or I think Garrett maybe mentioned participating in the Apple Crunch at the Good Food Summit. It's been a statewide event since I think it's 2012 and is generally a pretty easy win for farm to schools. Apples are often like the gateway fruit for many schools entering into farm to school due to the pretty easily apparent quality difference between fresh Michigan apples and imported apples. A pretty comparable price and near year-round availability. A lot of storage goes through March with a lot of local apple farmers, and they're a really great way, Apple Crunch events are a really great way to drum up school-wide excitement for local agriculture. I just saw recently that the Great Lakes reached the 1 million mark for registration, and we kind of do our registration outside of that, but every year we seem to have more and more folks on board. And right now I'm working on featuring an Apple Crunch story out of Eastern Michigan. Carolyn Thomas has been working with a school that primarily educates differently abled students and is working on creating an Apple Crunch that meets the needs of some students that may have texture aversions or may not be able to participate in a crunch in a traditional way. So there's a lot of exciting stuff that can come out of this and a lot of ways that the Apple Crunch can manifest. And with that in mind, if you guys know of any schools that are celebrating back to school month with farm to school that want to be featured in our Cultivate Michigan newsletter, we're kind of consistently keeping up with the amount of stories we have banked. And since we do have a couple minutes, I'd love if folks could just type into the chat box if they've heard of any events happening at schools in their area to celebrate either Farm to School Month or to kind of get in preparation for, or to celebrate back to school in September, or to get in preparation for Farm to School Month in October. Or if they've heard of any really exciting Apple Crunch nuggets that are coming out. And I know, Jay, I'm not sure if Dexter is still participating in Michigan Made Meals this year. It seemed like something they were doing every year. Do you know if those are happening again?
Yeah, she is doing them again. I believe she's doing 3. And this year, she's so adventurous. She wants to source Michigan rice. And so I connected her with the wild rice folks. I forget this woman's name, Barb Barton or something. She gave a talk with the GMI Natural Resources team about wild rice production in Michigan, which pretty much exists in the tribal regions. So yeah, that's happening, which is pretty exciting. So it'll be more like a tasting and an education around like wild rice in Michigan.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, I don't see anyone typing, but as those stories come across your desk, I'd be grateful if you could connect me with them. And, you know, like I mentioned, I think a lot of schools aren't always great at talking about the great work that they're doing in Farm to School. And we'd love to be able to highlight those in Cultivate Michigan and on our social media and things like that. So,
I have a quick question. Has anyone heard from 10 cents? Did the funding get, I know the call for proposals went out and.
Yeah. This is Colleen. So I believe the districts who are awarded the grant have been notified directly, and there is an effort to put together a press release to talk about all of the awards together. And then there will be I believe, a webinar training and an in-person training for the participating districts at the SNAM conference here in Lansing, which is similar to what we did last year. So yeah, they're in action. There's not been a lot of news about it because it happened really fast, and as always, there are a couple of hiccups along the way. But they've been notified, and I know at least on our evaluation side of things, we'll be getting a first survey out, I think, next week to the participating districts. So it's in motion. It's just not been, I don't even know who all of the awardee schools are, and I will be evaluating them shortly. So I can't give you a list or anything, but Drew and I were looking at that yesterday, and I believe there are 55 awarded districts now that they're.
Mariel just sent the list.
Oh, good. Where is it?
It's like it's at
there
10.
it is. Oh, yeah. On the page. Oops. Shoot.
Nice.
I didn't screw that up.
Cool. Thank you, Mariel.
Thank you, Mariel. I hadn't seen that yet.
Okay.
That's exciting.
Oh, that's great.
Great. All right, I'll pass it back to you, Colleen.
Thank you. Okay. Good call on calling out the 10-cent stuff, and certainly we hope that they'll be kicking off farm to school right away in September and spending those extra funds that they get. But great news that we get to expand that program again this year to new regions, so hopefully that continues. Okay, so on that note, I wanted to brainstorm with you all, and I know a lot of you are connected to schools work in particular, but given your various roles in the food system here in Michigan, I think this is relevant to everyone. But I did want to brainstorm with you a new idea that came out of some conversations that a smaller group of us had been talking about around a certain project, and kind of the gap in farm to school training, at least right at this moment, because we here at the center don't do our regional trainings that we had done for many years. We are not able to do that at this point, but the impetus for doing those was for our farm to school grant program, which ran from 2011 until 2018. So we won't be doing those, and we have been told by a lot of our farm to school partners that we should still be doing trainings, and they would still like us to be the ones doing trainings. But, and maybe we should do those where people are already gathering around school food. So the SNAM conference and the June MDE conference, but we haven't had space in those conferences to do any farm to school training, at least not yet, in the last year or so. So going forward, I think we can make that space, and we wanted to work on kind of an interim project to start documenting this work a bit more, that we had been doing for years around farm to school training, and expanding it, but also engaging more people in the teaching of farm to school and kind of building up more of a curriculum of sorts. So here's the idea. So this is kind of based off of a concept that Abby developed out when she was here at the center, and she did a series of webinars for Farm to ECE, and they were called webinar bites. So they were smaller bits of information that, when strung together, create all of the information you should need for a training. And that's kind of the similar idea here. So we would focus this particularly on K-12 food service, because there are some Farm to ECE pieces moving forward and moving forward separately. So I don't want to muddy the two just yet. And the real need we have right here is with K-12. And this is in the absence of those regional trainings in person, and with the hope that we will be able to do some statewide trainings at some conferences going forward. And with the effort here to document and catalog this training information and materials. So similar to Abby's Farm to ECE Bite series, we would like this to be a short series of webinars offered and kind of sprinkled throughout the school year. And I would hope that we could develop kind of the program early on in the year, but we wouldn't necessarily need to set all the dates and times right away. But maybe we could work together as a smaller planning team to get to the topics that should be covered. And the information and materials then that we develop out of this could maybe someday then serve as a basis for a more formal curriculum down the line. And by engaging more people in this, they always say you learn the most when you have to teach something. So this is kind of the idea here. So even if every webinar had a different presenter or mostly different presenters, then everyone would know that much more about farm to school, and we would be better suited to serve and support farm to school across the board, across the state, and down the line. So that's kind of the long-term goal of it. So in my initial thinking, and this is just initial ideas to throw out there for people to react to, the process could be that presenters could volunteer for topics, and we would then have our developed kind of topic series line, and we could later on determine time slots. But the volunteer who would present on that specific topic, which again would take all of 10 or maybe 15 minutes, but hopefully not 15 minutes, would research that topic, use materials that are out there already, develop a few slides and a script, and then I could be kind of the coordinator serving in that space in between to review those materials for accuracy, to help with some consistency between all of these presentations, so to help kind of tie them together and tie together the format also. And then I could work with the presenters to finalize and deliver the webinar live, but then we would also have it recorded and up on our website, and presenters would be certainly able to have it posted as well if they needed to, so that we could then be adding to the series as we go through the year. So the presenters would certainly be credited on our My Farm to School website where the series could live, but we could share out the recording to presenters to get credit also. So that's the initial idea. So initial questions are, do you agree that the demand is there for this type of training? Please enter your response into the chat box now.
Got some responses coming in, several yeses. Abby has a question that, like, loving the idea, wondering if there is a space for institutional food service directors to chime in on what areas they have specific questions on or want to see in depth.
Yes, I think that is a great point and great question, and I have a few thoughts on that. So firstly, I also see food service directors who are doing farm to school serving in the presenter role also. So I'm sure those of us in our room here at MSU and a lot of MSU extension educators, food corps folks even on the line could be presenting on certain topics, but I think food service directors who do this stuff in action could also be presenters. And we could gather up some feedback through a survey of sorts, a really quick one, where maybe we would list some of the topics that we would see being necessary for some of the farm to school how-to basics that aren't always the funnest to talk about, but necessary. And we have had other spaces to gather up that kind of information already too, because through our USDA Farm to School project this year that was paired with the Cultivate Michigan marketplaces, we did do a series of focus groups and gathered up some information needs from those school food service directors that we were talking to. So we do have some of that documented already. And also, Caitlin and I were working on a really quick turnaround for a project proposal this summer, and we also gathered some really quick feedback from some folks that are involved in the SNAM Executive Committee and their emerging leaders, and then also Cultivate Michigan members about what they would like to know more about, and also if they might be willing to teach on certain subjects. So we even have a little pool already of some food service directors who might be willing to be presenters. So I think there are lots of ways to engage them in this process, and I think that should be a priority. So we could combine like facilitators and supporters of Farm to School providing some of this information with practitioners who have tips and tricks to share them directly too. And I agree that the 10 cents folks would be a good group to hit for sure.
Colleen, is there going to be a MFIN presence at the trade show at SNAM this year?
We do not have a plan for that at this moment, but that is something that we could look into. It's probably a little bit late for that, and that would be a really good space to gather that information.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but that's okay. It's curious.
Yeah. Since it's here, and I think the trade show is probably not until Saturday or Sunday, but I'll probably be down there on Friday for 10 cents training. But I was thinking that I could even pop in on Saturday. So I think maybe some of our friends at MDE, if we aren't able to work out something more formal, could help get me in. And I could even do like a quick poll, have a little poll with my iPad there and have folks complete that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm willing to do that for fun on a Saturday.
Jay was curious if, just thinking about some additional funding for this project, is there a possibility of some sort of mini Farm to School grant to fund this or any other grant?
Well, I have no funding for this project in particular, and I'm not too worried about it. So it can.
Jay, sorry, I'm going to
Yeah,
interrupt.
go ahead.
Clarifying question. Do you mean additional funding to sort of help compensate the presenters, or are you thinking just a more general, like to make this happen?
Yeah, just generally to make it happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think in the way this idea is taking some shape, and this can change, of course. The biggest time sink would be on my part, which I think makes sense. It's not a sink also. But the biggest time commitment would be on my part to coordinate and kind of provide that consistency. And my hope would be that for any one person who's presenting, if you're only presenting 10 minutes worth of information, that it's not too heavy of a lift, and that folks would be willing and able to do that, us for our own credit and food service directors to get their ideas out there. So it would be kind of a goodwill thing, of course. And if folks aren't able to build it into their time, they don't have to participate. And I wouldn't want to stretch people that way. So, so my thought was that it was a kind of a low cost, but hopefully effective way to get this training information in one place, while mixing up presenters to keep it interesting, but also mixing up presenters to distribute that information.
Abby mentioned you'd be willing to help with polling at the SNAM if that happens.
Oh, okay. I will probably take you up on that, Abby. Thank you. Janine had a note there too. And we're just looking back at Janine's note there. School systems that are contracted, it's their procurement directors that need to be engaged. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the individual directors are just, no matter how much they want to engage, they're not going to be able to be unless their procurement departments bless that. And
yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, we have had, with 10 cents in particular, and this is just a very small group of food service folks, but I know that for some food service directors who have been trying and wanting to do farm to school within contracted food service, 10 cents has been really nice for them because it's a separate pot of money. And so they're able to use it differently than their typical contracts would allow for. So that's one group that we could engage even about talking about how that works, how to use those funds separately. And I agree with you, Janine, that we need to figure out a way to get to those folks.
Maybe it's an open invitation of asking the directors, to feel free to bring members of their leadership. Regional directors or folks from their procurement department.
For sure. Okay. So hopefully we've gotten to all of those initial notes. But my next quick question is on format. Does this format sound like a good and useful one, or does anyone have other bright ideas on how to deliver this information in a low-cost way?
I agree that the recorded video is becoming more popular than just webinar.
Yeah.
Only
the live
handful,
time
is
it's
not
not
hard
all that
to get
useful.
people to show up for live stuff, and it's important to have a recorded spot
that's accessible whenever.
Yes.
That's Noel speaking for those who don't recognize his voice. He's in our room here too. Thoughts on the format, even just a yes, no to the webinar series idea?
I'm curious if this is something you would think about like charging a nominal fee for, and also packaging it as like a group of webinars that you could charge a fee for all of them, or like a series, or then the recordings or something like that.
Yeah, I talked with Caitlin earlier about this idea in general, but one of the longer term thoughts with this would be, this is step one and part one of what could be something that becomes more of like a more formalized curriculum. So this is getting the information together, and the scripts then are important because then we have that information, not just slides. But then that could be packaged by probably someone other than me into a curriculum that's more formalized with activities and that sort of thing, and maybe that's something that could be charged for and have some kind of credit with it and or certificate or something like that. So this is kind of an initial phase in what might be something that could live on longer term. So I don't know that I would charge for this, especially if we want people to be able to use it when they can, and managing that adds a whole other layer of complexity to it. But I think for a curriculum like that, that would be a different story.
Finished product.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah, this is like a work in progress, and then the whole series together would be the finished product that could become something else.
Field test it.
Yeah.
And then package it.
This is the field testing.
A good idea.
Yes.
Yeah. We can build on what MIFMA has done for their certificate program for the Michigan Farmers Market Manager program. They do some really cool things with that.
Cool. Okay. So some initial ideas I had for topics are kind of obvious, I think. So things like farm to school and its benefits, maybe some quick data briefs on farm to school participation, farm to school events as a way to engage. So talking about Farm to School Month, Apple Crunch, Cherry Slurp, developing a farm to school team, creating a local definition, learning about seasonality. So a lot of these things were built into our farm to school trainings before for anyone who has attended. And then there's like a whole procurement segment where we could break down procurement into the micro purchasing, informal procurement, formal procurement, developing solicitations, geographic preferencing, forward contracts, seasonal menu planning. So there's a long list already. And we could have things like understanding better your local food system and talk about food hubs here in Michigan, and then solicit kind of bright ideas from the food service directors that would be good nuggets, to use one of Abby's words, to share. So I'm not too worried about building out the topics, but I'm trying now to figure out the best way to move this idea forward and with a group that might be interested. So my thought on that might need to develop a little bit more, but from the folks on this call here today at this meeting, would you be interested in presenting on a farm to school topic? And if so, do you have a particular farm to school topic that you would like to present on? Please type your response into the chat box.
Mary already claimed the farm food safety programs.
Great. That's awesome. Yeah. And our friends from the Michigan Department of Education weren't able to be here today, but they are certainly the procurement experts, so they could help and or present on that. And Abby's got that down too, so we can do that. Protein, food hubs, awesome. Yeah, I think the small farmer perspective will be really important. So great. So we already have then some folks that we can pull on for this. I think and trust that we'll be able to get a lot of this covered by a lot of different voices, and I think that'll really help show off the great farm to school work we have going on here in the state too. So I think I will have another space or two for folks to kind of throw their name in as interested in helping to develop out this series and present. And then we could have a quick planning meeting, virtual planning meeting, where we can go through some of these topics more specifically and that process a little bit more and get some feedback and direction on that. And I know Caitlin, I don't know if she's still on the line, but I know she was interested in engaging in this and helping to organize too. So hopefully between the two of us, we can get something put together in the near future. It would be cool to launch something like this maybe in October during Farm to School Month. I know that's right around the corner, but even if we could shoot for like launching it at the end of the month, and it wouldn't have to be too complicated at that point, but just having one webinar in the month of October, maybe that can happen to kick off the series. So I appreciate your input, and I will call on you all. And there's plenty to cover. So I can also see what spaces remain after some of the initial topics are taken. But yeah, like Kathryn said, I can certainly call on you for something like evaluating your program. Yeah, that would be useful too. So thanks. Can you get down these names for me? And I will save the, I'll try to save the chat box too, but I feel like that never works for me. Okay, so thank you all for participating in that little brainstorming session, and you will see and hear more about that soon, and certainly then through the year as it gets going. But I think it could work. All right, so to wrap up here, and hopefully right on time, so just another call out to join us for the Michigan Good Food Summit on October 22nd and the evening before if you're able. We're not going to have another meeting until after the summit on November 20th. So that will be our last virtual meeting of this year, 2018. And that will be from 2 to 4 p.m. So I know we already have on the docket folks from the STARS program, as was mentioned earlier, that ASHE STARS program. They will be presenting so we can learn a little bit more about how that works as we try to understand college and university settings a little bit more. And we've got some feelers out for other guest presenters from colleges and universities here in Michigan. So we'll be developing that out and getting a registration link out, so certainly be on the lookout for that. And then, since we do have a few minutes, does anybody have any updates that they would like to share with the group for the good of the group?
I could just share with you, this is Noel at the Center for Regional Food Systems. Just wanted to give a quick update on an LFPP proposal that the Michigan Food Hubs put together. We did get funded for that proposal, so we're really excited to be continuing the Food Hub network in sort of a new form and new direction over the next 3 years with the help of that funding. And there's a lot of overlap with that work and the work of Farm Institution and other institutional procurement efforts. So we're really excited to have the opportunity to keep working in this space. So just one good update I want to share.
Yeah, more good news. Congratulations. Woohoo! Any other updates? Oh, yeah.
I'm sure it's fine. Okay, so I don't know if she posted it on Facebook yet, but our co-founder and former colleague, Hillary, now Greenwood, if folks don't know, had a baby yesterday.
Woo!
So
Yay.
welcome Adam, or not Adam, sorry,
Wyatt.
Wyatt Allen Greenwood to the world, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We're just sharing with some of her closest friends.
Yep.
So, yeah.
For recorded for posterity. She hopefully will post that soon. We're just really excited.
Other last updates? Going once? Going twice. All right then. We will finish at 3:55. And we'll see you in October if we don't see you before, hopefully at the summit. And then we'll catch up again in November. Thank you all for engaging in another virtual network meeting, and have a good weekend.
Go team.
Go team.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.